WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We've got the positively groovy background here now on our new Zoom calls. All of our WNST progress and performance brought to you by the Western Fries of Royal Farms. Real fresh, real fast, and the world-famous chicken as well. I haven't had the Western Fries in a while. I got to make that happen. I go in there, I smell the fries, but I always get the chicken. I'm going to change that here as we get into what used to be bikini season for me. I mean, I've known this guy a long time. We used to fly down to Fort Lauderdale, and some of the guys would go to the dog track. Some of us would go down to the beach or shooters or whatnot a million years ago. But they gave him a rocking chair at the Associated Press. Welcome one of our defending champions on here. It won't be the same around the media scrums without Dave Ginsburg. Gins, what's going on, man? New laptop. I hear that you're sort of weaning off of Zoom these days after a year of trying to cover sports this way. Probably forced you into retirement, dude.
They did not. I chose to get in the rocking chair myself. I figured 37 years of work was more than enough, old enough. I can afford to work when I want to work. So that's the plan. I'll tell you, it's been 8 days of retirement. Quite liberating, Nestor. I don't have to worry about any of the transactions. I don't have to worry about, Matthew Judon, what's going to happen to his future. I'm curious, but I don't have to worry about it. So
let somebody else write it. You can read Luke's work or read back whoever's writing about it. Somebody else will be out there. I want to ask you this, and it's not even to be flippant. This maybe to be a little bit fun, but I live across the street from the News American. I walked in there in 1984. I had Dick Girardi on last week. I actually found, and I cleaned my whole office out, but I found the very first byline I ever had. Teresa Andrews during the 1984 Olympics. I was 15 years old. And all I ever wanted to do was be a sports writer and steal your email address. And, I followed the footsteps of John Stedman up to the Sun. This is 1986 to 92. And in 92, I had to make some decisions, about newspapering and writing. And I wound up doing radio by sort of chance. I mean, I never dreamed of being a radio guy ever. And then, my journey's been where it's been. But, man, my dad was so pissed at me in 92 when I left the paper, because he wanted me to stay at the paper and get a gold watch, and I know they came in to save the paper. But, man, it must be gratifying for you to have made it all the way through as, like, a sports writer. You know what I mean? Like, the job I dreamed of, you actually did it. I've had to meander into a whole bunch of other crap, Dave,
Well, okay, first of all, I do love being a sports writer. That's what I wanted to be. To me, I enjoy writing much better than radio or television, because if I make a mistake, I just hit backspace and it's corrected. When you put it out there, it's the final version, and you're very happy with what you have. When I'm talking to you, Nestor, I do a lot of uhs and things to that nature. I'm not perfect, but I do feel that as a writer, I love putting words together. I just love going to a baseball game, starting out with a blank screen, and by final pitch, I got 550 words that explains what happened, crafted in the way that I wanted to over the course of 9 innings, as opposed to wrapping it up a la Luke. Much respect for what Luke does, because he's both a writer and a radio guy. But I always loved writing. I always loved sports, and I got to combine my two passions together for a very long time, even longer than 37 years, because before I worked at AP, I was covering high schools for a local paper called the Sentinel in Montgomery County, things to that nature.
I don't even remember you from those days, man. You've always been at the Associated Press, and it feels like I've always been here to some degree. This is my 30th year. I didn't even know what you did before you got the gig there.
Well, that's it. It was, I graduated, and I'll make myself sound old, but just for the sake of the way it went, graduated Maryland in 75, I worked for the Diamondback, and even then I was covering high schools for local paper, and I was working at Giant Food to make ends meet, because, journalism at the entry stage does not pay. My first full-time gig in journalism, sports editor of the Sentinel, $200 a week in 1980. and I still had to
And you
keep
were
that
happy to
giant
have it.
cage.
Maybe add a little expense account here and again, right? Get a sandwich or something.
Totally happy to have it because it was, again, sports and writing. So,
I
and
got
then in
paid
19,
$10 at the Dundalk Eagle right around the same time, 84, 85. So I hear you, man.
dude, I got 25 bucks a story when I was way back when in the 70s, and I was happy to get it because, like you, the byline was what it was about. I used to get up in the morning and ride to get that weekly newspaper to see my name there. So
Well, I
it was
delivered it
great.
first, right? So I was the kid delivering the paper. Then I wanted to write for the paper. I would say for you, the Associated Press thing, you probably at that point probably wanted to be at the Post or the Sun, right? Or the New York Times or whatever, right?
Nestor, very accurate. When I was growing up, I lived in Silver Spring, and my goal was to write for the Washington Post. That was it. I mean, that was the paper. And I ended up with AP, and really worked out better for me.
You got a seat next to Boswell.
Exactly. We could we could talk all about it. And I mean, AP gave me the chance to cover a lot of sports. I mean, Nestor, I saw you at Orioles, I saw you at Ravens, I saw you at Maryland. Didn't see you at Navy much, but that was one of my gigs, and I enjoyed the variety. I enjoyed
So you
writing
had
for
the
a
Navy
national.
beat back in the 80s. The Alton Grizzard team and Elliot Uzelac. Let's get the boys in the pool. We'll stimulate them. So, yeah, come on, man. I covered 1 year in Navy. So I did, my background was covering softball and high school sports in Anne Arundel County and high school basketball. And that was like a dream gig. Covering high school. They actually talk to you. The further up you go up the ranks, the less they really want to speak to any of us, right?
Absolutely. The kids enjoyed talking. They were terrible quotes, so usually you'd go with the coach, as you well know. I mean,
And you could call the
17-year-old
coach at home at 10 o'clock at night and wake them up. They'd be happy to talk to you because you're putting something
that
in the paper about their kids, right?
absolutely accurate. Half my gig at the Sentinel was calling up coaches and wrapping up the week. It was a weekly newspaper, so that was my gig. I'd call them up, and then I'd write the story on a typewriter with penciled corrections, and then drive it over to my editor's house and slip it under his door.
You and I
So
have a
he could
real
read it.
appreciation for backspace and delete because the world never worked that way before 1995, right?
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Back when I was actually working games for the AP in the 80s, I would bring my electric typewriter courtside and pray that Rick Mahorn wouldn't bolt into me, type my story, and then dictate it at game's end, and throw a few quotes in after
Jeff
that.
Malone winds up trying to sink a three and winds up with his keister on your desk there, right? Barkley bows him out or something.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. I feared thunder and lightning with Ruland and Mahorn, those guys. If they went into the and back then, as you know, we covered games courtside. It was wonderful.
Man, I told my wife about that a couple weeks ago because I found all my old stuff, from like the 80s, press passes, autographs, pictures, things. And I said to her, man, going to a Bullets game at the Capitol Center when after you're sitting courtside, there's Dr. J, Little Gray, Barkley, and then after the game, you know, 2 nights later, Gretzky'd be there on ice, right? And I'd be over talking to Brian Murray about the offense and the defense. And that formed my childhood. And for you being near all of that, I mean, you were a Redskin guy, right?
I did grow up a Redskins.
But you remember the Senators. You're old enough to remember that.
I went to many a game. Yes, I do. Not only remember it, lived it. It was, that's how I grew up. I mean, I'll tell you what, Nestor. I mean, I grew up as a Washingtonian, and I hated Unitas and the Colts. I'll be quite honest with you. But once I started working in Baltimore, I switched up. Hate the Redskins now. Love Baltimore sports, and I obviously had to be impartial while I was writing. But now I'm all about Baltimore. And,
why? How did that happen? Give me the ideology of that, other than the fact you've probably been treated like garbage one too many times at Redskin Park.
Nah, well, it was not an easy gig, but they were great then. I covered, Joe Gibbs was the coach. I covered the Super Bowl with Doug Williams, and grew up a Redskins fan, loved the Redskins. But I'll tell you what, I mean, and I know how I've been chided for abandoning the team that I grew up with. But when you start covering a team, even the first couple of years I covered the Orioles, I couldn't get into it. but then I just grew. I'm a Baltimorean now, and I'm proud of it. And it was just that change. And when you live in a new environment, I just abandoned ship from the old one and readily adopted the new one. When the Ravens came in, I loved Art Modell, and covered that team from its existence all the way through last season.
It's been fun with the Ravens, that it turned out the way it turned out 25 years later. And I say this all the time, and if I didn't have the fun set, speaking of teams that have treated me well, here's a great example over the shoulder. But with the Ravens, and I had Art Modell's picture on my set forever, and John Ogden's original hat and all that. So I've taken that away now. We've just gone virtual. But when I think back to what it could have been and what it meant for my life, and obviously for your life too as a sports writer, and having done this now for the bulk of your life and your career, that the Ravens really represented something for all of us, And I always said that to Art. I said that to David, and I'm glad I said it before they passed and told them to their face, that they really changed my life. And had that team gone to Memphis or San Antonio or Orlando or whatever that world it would have been, or not come here, or Cleveland would have bent over and given the Browns what they want, and maybe we would have wound up with Georgia Fronieri or Al Davis, or maybe we would have wound up with nothing,
Yep.
And I know Jack King Cook would have liked that, and Washington and whatever, and maybe this whole thing could have turned out a lot differently, and that probably would have turned out a lot different for Dave and Ness, probably, right?
Well, I'm going to just tell you that I remember when they first came here, it was like they didn't catch on. I think people in Baltimore didn't like the fact that they, quote, stole the Browns. But, for everyone that hated Art Modell in Cleveland, I think two people in Baltimore loved him. And it worked out great. It didn't start out that well because I think people were a little reluctant to get on that bandwagon. And, back in the beginning, Nestor, there were only 3 or 4 people that really covered the team on a regular basis. But they've really caught on. They're a part of the fabric of Baltimore. Art Modell did it right. And then Steve Bisciotti picked up where he left off. I think the Ravens mean so much to this city, means a lot to me too, because I didn't have a football team to cover except the University of Maryland. And
we really didn't believe,
Navy.
did we? I mean, I think it's hard. I mean, us being older guys, I don't know that we ever really believed that the NFL was going to let us back in, that there really was a pot of gold at the end of that, all that Herb Belgrad and Rankin Smith and Irsay has to vote for Baltimore. Yeah, I mean, we hoped and we prayed and we thought, and Charlotte and Jacksonville, but it certainly was no foregone conclusion that it would ever exist.
Never. And remember, you might remember that exhibition game between the Dolphins and Saints.
I found my press pass. We talked about that the other day.
The NFL, come on, Baltimore, prove that you're a big fan. You know what? It was all a ploy to get 50,000 people to watch a meaningless football game.
By the way, you know why I pulled the press pass out? Because the Glazers won the Super Bowl. Remember? The Glazers were the centerpiece of the whole night that night, right? With Bob Loeffler.
Yeah. And it was, basically you had to bend over and pray to get a team. And, Tagliabue was all promises and then nothing. And then, Art delivered. And, to me, it's unfortunate he's not in the Hall of Fame. And maybe we're off topic here. Unfortunate. He's vilified in Cleveland still, but they got their team. We got one, and everyone should be happy. And they should really stop their resentment toward Art Modell, because that's probably what's keeping him out of Hall of Fame.
Dave Ginsburg here, formerly of the Associated Press. That sounds a little weird. You can still follow him. I don't know what you'll be tweeting about or Facebooking about, or what beach you'll be laying on, or ball game you'll be sunning yourself with a libation. Hopefully we can all get a shot and go do all that. A serious topic here on this stadium here and the parking lot, I guess, on this side, on the other side. And the lease and 2 years. I've talked to everybody about this last 2 weeks. So sort of open it up, and we'll open it up to dining a little later on as well, get some food recommendations from you locally, because I'm trying to do my Wayne's World support for all local things. Whatever the Orioles will be, and you've seen this deterioration of it, you've seen the Nationals come now and have a parade of their own. Angelos now, wherever failing health or wherever he is at this point. You mentioned Bisciotti and his stewardship over 2 decades, that he will not own this football team forever. At some point, someone else will. At some point, someone not named Peter Angelos or Mama Angelos will run the Orioles. Time will tell on that. But over the next 10 or 15 years, especially on the other end of this plague, where sports is, one of the reasons I'm doing Baltimore Positive now, and I'm not just sticking to sports, is I've seen a little bit of a deterioration of all of this in interest. And it's not about web clicks or hits or just general interest in sports, and the level of when my wife says to me, are we really going to spend $300 every Sunday going back to Ravens games? Do we want to go to all of them, or we just want to go to some of them now? And, what else can we find to do in the middle of a pandemic where a lot of tastes are changing, things are changing, the city's certainly changing? I really want to see some vision. So, some people with some vision for what it took to make this happen to begin with, when you remembered this not existing, the football team, which we've just lamented for 10 minutes, not existing before. I wonder what the next thing here is going to be and who's going to dream it up, and how there's going to be the next renaissance that, quite frankly, this thing represented, right?
Well, I hear everything you're saying, and I just simply believe that when this is over, people will go back, because maybe you don't want to spend $300 all the time, but I think people really miss the tailgate. It's not just the football game. You've got the whole day and all the camaraderie that you have going to a football game, going to a baseball game. It's not cheap, but it's entertainment, and it's unpredictable. I mean, reality TV is the thing now, and sports will always be reality TV. And I truly believe that there will not be a disintegration. I think there'll be I think people will return and love going to sports again, because they've been robbed of it. And I'm old enough to remember when the NFL went on strike and everyone said people will not return and watch the games. They're fat cows, but everyone went back. I think people need sports. People are willing to pay for it, and all the trappings that go with it. You're not just going to a baseball game. You're going to, it's a sunny day with your son or your wife or whatever. And
it's all been taken away now, right? So if you have an appreciation for it, you're going to appreciate it more.
That's my point. I mean, once, when you have a chance to do it again, and man, I can't wait. I'm going to go as a fan, and I'm going to return as a reporter. I'll just do it on a part-time basis because I love going to the ballpark, and I think people in general do as well. And I'll be happy to go as a fan, and I'll be happy to go as a reporter, because there's really nothing quite like on a beautiful day at Camden Yards, or a nice fall crisp day at the M&T, watching your team play. And it's more than just the game. It's the whole party before and after. And I think that people will continue to do so, particularly in Baltimore, where they love their sports.
Dave, I know I've seen you at games having a brew and a family and friends, and not just being in the press box. And obviously, you've seen me run around with a Ravens jersey and lead thousands of people to places and taking them in and out of places at various points as well. But the notion of what the Nationals represent as something different than here. Do you go to a lot of Nats games? I mean, you've seen that thing pop up, and I know I've gone down the All-Star game, but that neighborhood and all that it sort of has represented for DC. You talk about the Senators and what lousy thing that was 50 years ago. That vibe and that thing is what we have with Camden Yards here. I'm trying to think for Baltimore how we reinvent that over the next decade or two, because they certainly have taken something from scratch down on the banks of the Anacostia, and they turned it into something for those folks. Not my cup of tea to go down to the Nats games, and I don't know that I'm, ever going to be their customer, but certainly what they've done down there is not unlike what the Ravens have done in Baltimore, from, blowing a little air into something and having it turn out to be something that brings a parade and brings people together.
I agree. I covered many a Nats game. I enjoy, as you well know, I enjoy baseball, so I did not mind. In fact, I volunteered to do games down there. The thing about it, Nestor, is it's certainly revitalized the city around that ballpark, no doubt about it. But you still can't find a parking spot for less than $50. And to me, that's a huge deterrent. Camden Yards, you pull into lot B, C, whatever. It's not as costly. You can take the metro right there, the rail right there. It's easier to get in. To me, and Nats Park, very generic. There's nothing like Camden Yards in the warehouse in the background. Nats Park, you don't know that you're in Washington. They cut out the view of the Capitol. It's not as fun to be at that ballpark, and parking was brutal. If I didn't have parking through the AP, just wouldn't have happened. So I think that, yes, it's revitalized the city around there, but it's just not as fun to go to a game.
Dude, I can't get a more Baltimore positive guy than you, man. You're pooping on DC. You love Baltimore. Your dog's even barking like in agreement with
I'm
you.
trying to stop it.
Hey, man, what are you doing in retirement here? I mean, it sounds to me like you're already itching for more bylines. I mean, you're going to come out of retirement and you're going to be like Palmer coming back and doing this, right?
I will come back. Here's the thing, though. I hate covering a game in this era of COVID. No fans, no atmosphere. Wearing a mask the whole time. Zoom interviews. And I got two teams to cover. I can't just cover the local team. I've got two teams to cover. Makes it very difficult. I'm going to wait until we've returned to normalcy. I can shake hands with Nestor in the cafeteria upstairs at Camden Yards. I don't have to bring my own food.
You don't see me upstairs at Camden Yards. I mean, that would be new ownership. So that would be the ray of sunshine. This is an image for the next time I see you in Oriole Park when I'm wearing a press credential. You'll
fair enough.
Sunshine. Divine
you know what? I should amend it to Luke. I can see Luke up there at Camden Yards.
That's me. You see Luke, you see me. We are the same. So.
Fair enough. It's just right now covering games is not that much fun. What I'm doing right now is really enjoying the fact that I don't have to worry about the things that are going on around the Orioles having a minor league contract with Wade LeBlanc. Come on, I don't have to worry about that. And I just, I look forward to doing it when I want to do it. And I look forward to going to a game as a fan with my wife or kid and having a beer in my hand, whatever. Hope to do some traveling once this COVID thing is subsides. I don't know if it'll ever be over. I can't imagine. But once it subsides substantially, Jamaica, here I come.
Well, every time I see you with a libation and some sunshine and some sun balm on, a little color on you, have one for me, all right? Well, I'll be here working while you're off having a good time, retired, okay? I'll be the one here zooming at these. I call them hostage videos, dude. Ever since this thing began a year ago, our work has been watching hostage videos. None of these guys want to sit in front of a camera and answer questions. It's all real weird and impersonal, and I would agree with you that it has moved me off of sticking to sports,
Well, it's just not as fun, and I'm just, I just love going to a ball game. Well, back in the day, we'd go down and we'd be in the clubhouse, we'd schmooze a little, Brandon Hyde, we'd do some, we'd go back up, write what we got, have an hour in the cafeteria, and then watch a baseball game with fans.
The proper
in the
hot
stands. Yeah, and nothing. There's nothing there now, and it's.
Dude,
just,
I saw you at the Maryland game with Heist. That's the weirdest thing in the world, to be at a Maryland game, ain't nobody there, right?
As I said, no atmosphere whatsoever. The only people cheering are the 12 guys on the bench, so it's completely quiet. And I wore a mask the whole game. Very difficult with glasses, as you might know. Fogging up left and right, but made it happen. And then afterward, they played Minnesota. Had to do Turgeon and then quickly try to get the Zoom call off of Minnesota, which was difficult to do. Not a lot of fun, and I look forward to doing it when it's back being fun.
Well, at least they're playing better, and there's allegedly going to be March Madness. Well, there is madness here. Dave Ginsburg has retired and sailed off into the sunset. I guess that's why I brought this out for him. You can follow him out on Twitter. I don't think you're done, and I'll bother you once or twice a year to come on, and we'll kick the Orioles when they're down. How about this? The night that Adley Rutschman comes up, we'll go like we did with Matt Wieters and the rainbow over the warehouse, and we'll celebrate the return of Orioles baseball. How about that?
That sounds awesome. I'm still going to be, I still have opinions. I'm still going to be a fan, still going to be in it, but just not completely absorbed as I used to be. And I'm happy with that transition, believe me.
0.0, the Orioles' chances of making the postseason. You picked a good year to take this one off, Dave.
I completely agree. Last year would have been just as good. I covered 33 games with mask on and my own salad for food. So, well, last season wasn't fun. It's going to be more of the same this year until we can go back to normal.
Lamar's back on the field in September. You'll be out talking about football and covered football. Dave, get a tan, drink a lot, but not too much. Work out a little bit and stay healthy and wash your hands and wear your mask, all right?
I appreciate it, Nestor. Thanks again.
Happy retirement. I wanted to wish you well off into the sunset at Camden Yards, but it's not goodbye. It's see you later. How about that?
That's the deal. I'll see you at the Ravens too.
Or it's like Michael Regai. See you later. We'll get him on at some point a little later on. Dave Ginsburg joining us here from the Associated Press. All of our WNST coverage brought to you by our friends at Liberty Pure. I'd wear the hat, but it would mess up my hair. Now that I'm growing pandemic hair here. 1-800-CLEAN-WATER, the way to make that happen. Well water, fresh water, or if you're like me and your hot water heater was corrosive, they came out, took great care of us, wore a mask, gated all up, safely done, our friends at Liberty Pure Solutions. Also, our friends at Planet Fitness. I got my water bottle here. I got to learn how to do this better with the green screen. I got to talk to Marty Bass and Bob Turk about how to do this. Planet Fitness, safely working out, talking about, you don't want to eat too much here when the spring season comes and get ready for all the hot dogs and the apple pie and the baseball and all that good stuff as well. You can find me, Luke, all of us out at WNST and BaltimorePositive.com.